With yet another heat wave on the horizon, an early warning has been issued to health and social care providers in large parts of England that adverse temperatures may impact the population from today until Tuesday evening. According to Natural England, many parts of England and Wales will face a very high risk of wildfires for days to come, with the risk expected to rise to exceptional in some places by Wednesday. And meanwhile, across Europe, emergency services continue to battle multiple fires that are already burning, as Amelia Jen reports.
As historic wildfires tore through France and Spain last month, the EU's emergency response team said by August all of Europe could be alight. Something firefighters in Serbia are now seeing for themselves as they tackle the flames from above. While on the ground, heartbroken families watch on, powerless, as the flames approach their homes. Last night, 200 people were evacuated from Lake Garda in Italy. This, another year of record temperatures across what is now the fastest heating continent on Earth. With hot, dry and windy conditions across the EU, 43% more severe this year than the 20-year average. In the UK, authorities are bracing for yet another heatwave next week.
If we look at the last 5 summers in the UK, we've consistently had at least 4 heat waves in each summer, and that's really unusual. This is not our normal weather. It's increasingly extreme because of climate change. What it means is that we're all more likely to be exposed to extreme weather and what we call this climate whiplash effect, where we are experiencing wetter winters and then drier, hotter summers.
According to the Environment Agency, next week could see more areas join the half of England already in drought. And following wildfires from the Cairngorms in Scotland to the Suffolk coast, almost all of the east and southeast of England is, from Sunday, at a higher risk of a wildfire becoming exceptionally severe.
He was moving so fast towards the house, it was very scary.
Bruce Wilson rushed to help put out this field fire on a neighbour's farm in Moulton, North Yorkshire, during early July's heatwave.
Quite a few years ago, there was times when you were really struggling in the field at this time of year because it was sinking, it was that wet. But for the last few years, we do seem to be getting a much hotter, drier summers, and obviously the fire risk is a lot higher.
Farmers across the country have been reporting diminished yields, with the National Farmers Union warning of some food shortages if the drought continues.
Harvest time has certainly got much earlier. About 25 years ago, it became by wheat back in August, September time. September used to be the harvest month, but now people combining wheat in July, which I can only put down to these hotter, drier summers where the crops are dying off much faster rather than ripening.
Governments across the globe are having to scramble to mitigate against climate change driven at pace by fossil fuel pollution. Last month, the UK was forced to curb electricity exports to Europe to preserve supplies as demand for aircon shot up and the heat drove power plant efficiency down. Andy Burnham has so far been tight-lipped on his environmental plans, including the future of drilling for oil and gas in the North Sea. Today, just as London's Mayor Sadiq Khan called for the Prime Minister to reaffirm his commitment to net zero, the new Energy Secretary Miatta Fahnbulleh, in her interview with the Times newspaper, hinted that the government could water down net zero targets on electric cars and clean energy in an effort to improve the cost of living.
Well, earlier I spoke to Clover Hogan, who is on the independent board advising London Mayor Sadiq Khan on climate issues. I began by asking her why she thought that the effects of climate change weren't treated as a matter of far greater urgency by governments.
I think many of us within the climate community for many years have thought, once there's that evidence on our doorsteps, governments will finally be compelled to act. And yet we have, leaders such as Andy Burnham, who's just stepped into 10 Downing Street, turning around and saying, well, maybe we need to keep fossil fuels in the mix. Maybe we need more oil and gas exploration. We need to be pragmatic. And that's exactly the opposite of what the science is saying we need to do.
Well, let's stick with Andy Burnham then, since you bring him up. He hasn't said yet quite what he's going to do about the climate or whether he's going to approve these 2 huge oil and gas fields, Jackdaw and Rosebank. But that decision could be imminent. What sort of signal do you think it would send if those big oil and gas fields do get approved?
I think it would be a real betrayal, to be completely honest. You know, Andy Burnham, as Mayor of Manchester, really took on a climate mandate. And just over a year ago, he actually signed on and endorsed the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty. So he agreed. He said, you know, we can't have new oil and gas exploration. He said that, you know, this is a really important piece of, you know, policy that governments need to sign on to. And yet the fact that he's, you know, failed to commit, I think, sends a really confusing signal that actually goes against what the general UK population wants to see. The UK population wants to see action on climate change.
How do you explain then this disconnect? Because it's not just in politics, is it? It is out there amongst at least part of the population, between parts of the UK, Europe, the US being on fire, and yet people are calling, some of them, for a more gradual pathway towards net zero and to continue drilling for oil and gas, for example.
I mean, the sad reality is that the fossil fuel industry has infiltrated the highest levels of decision making and politics. And this is an industry that has spent so much money and decades trying to slow climate progress.
There are also people in this country who would say, well, the UK has decarbonised faster than pretty much any other advanced economy. And so they feel that we've done our fair share. They look around the world and see what's happening elsewhere and say, well, perhaps it's time for someone else to take the lead. In a time of a cost of living crisis, people feel maybe that, you know, maybe they can't afford any more sacrifices right now.
I would say it's a very short-term way of looking at the issue, because as we know, climate change is already costing us billions of pounds. And so the longer we try and, you know, delay this issue and say, well, you know, it's someone else's problem down the line, it's the next government's problem, the bigger that bill is going to become for people in this country.
Do you think people are feeling anxious about this in their own lives? They look around and they feel helpless.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of young people feel really, really anxious. But again, you know, we've all experienced the impacts of the heat waves. And if you can't afford to live somewhere that's air conditioned, if you don't have the infrastructure, you're going to feel anxious about the state of the world, and to realize that, you know, this is just a trailer of what's to come. And I think people want to see genuine leadership. And the other thing is, you know, by investing in climate solutions, we can also invest in, you know, better infrastructure for people and making people's lives better.
And just finally, Clover, I mean, it is also people's livelihoods. Particularly, for instance, in the northeast of Scotland, they've already lost thousands of jobs. If you're saying turn off the taps, that has real life consequences too.
Well, obviously, we're not going to turn off the taps tomorrow. That's not going to happen. Unfortunately, we have delayed for so long that means that we now need to take much more drastic measures than we would have done if we'd really gotten ahead of this issue 10, 15, 20 years ago. You know, our energy bills are just going to continue to go up if we, you know, continue to defend fossil fuels. So we need a transition, and we need to prioritize the most vulnerable people in this country in that transition.
Clover Hogan, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.